The galaxy trembles with echoes of choices long buried in the dust of history. None echo louder than the fall of the Eldar. Once their empire spanned the stars in beauty unmatched. Their mastery of the warp and the material world so profound that they were like gods among mortals. They were artisans of reality, shaping worlds as easily as a potter shapes clay. To be Eldar was to be eternal, to know beauty and knowledge without end. But in the timeline we know, they fell. They gave themselves to indulgence. They surrendered discipline for decadence, purpose for pleasure. Their souls rang with desire so vast that it stirred the warp itself. A hunger was born of their excess, swelling until it tore reality open. From their sin rose Slaanesh, the youngest of the Chaos Gods, whose birth cry devoured billions of Eldar souls in an instant. The eye of terror yawned wide, swallowing systems whole, and the galaxy was forever scarred. The Eldar, once rulers of eternity, became a broken remnant. But what if that fall had never come? What if the Eldar had resisted? What if their arrogance had not curdled into corruption? Imagine a galaxy where restraint triumphed over indulgence, where the Eldar did not descend into the abyss, but ascended further into mastery. In this alternate history, the Eldar heed the warnings of their seers. They feel the tremors of excess growing, the weight of their people's indulgence gnawing at the edges of the warp. And instead of plunging forward into madness, they step back. They choose discipline. They weave their passions into purpose. The philosophy of the path arises not in desperation, a fragmentary attempt to stave off extinction, but as a deliberate evolution. Each Eldar soul is bound not to endless indulgence, but to mastery. The path of the warrior, the path of the seer, the path of the artisan, the path of the scholar, all arise as ways to focus, to shape, to endure. There is no great cataclysm, there is no scream in the warp, no wound splitting the galaxy. There is no eye of terror. Instead, there is continuity. The Eldar Empire grows older, wiser, colder. Their craft worlds are not desperate arcs fleeing apocalypse, but proud citadels of expansion, pushing further into the void. Their Webway gates do not collapse into ruin, but remain highways of civilization, arteries through which their dominion flows. They remain as they had always been, overlords of the stars, masters of a dominion so vast it seems eternal. The consequences ripple outward in ways beyond imagining. Without the fall, the Eldar retain their gods. Kyla Mensha Kane, the bloody-handed, does not shatter into fragments bound within craftworld shrines, but remains whole, worshipped in towering temples of fire and steel. Isha, the mother, is not lost to Nurgle's garden, but continues to guide her children, her blessings evident in harvests that never fail, in cities where disease is unknown. Sigorak, the laughing god, plays his games not as a survivor, but as a triumphant trickster, mocking gods and mortals alike. Even Asurian, the greatest of them, is remembered and revered, his authority unchallenged. The Pantheon remains unbroken, a shield for the Eldar, a reminder that they are not only mortals, but children of the divine. Without the fall, the galaxy's balance is forever changed. Humanity, still young, still scattered across Terra and Mars and its colonies, is little more than an afterthought in the eyes of the Eldar. A species of potential, perhaps, but primitive compared to the Lords of the Stars. The Orcs spread as they always do, their endless wars crushing across the galaxy. But the Eldar cull them with elegance, never allowing their tides to rise too high. The Necrons slumber still, their tombs hidden, waiting for a chance that may never come. And the Tyranids, far beyond the galactic rim, stir in silence. The warp is quieter. Without Slaanesh, there is no predator fixated upon Eldar souls. Their spirit stones are talismans, not lifelines. Their rituals are disciplines, not desperate wards. Demons still hunger, but their feasts are fewer, their lures weaker. The warp remains hostile, yes, but it is weather, not geography. Storms rage, ships are lost, madness claims the unwary. But there is no permanent wound, no eternal maelstrom. The galaxy belongs unquestionably to the Eldar. They are not survivors clinging to fragments of their past glory. They are not dwindling remnants fading into memory. They are what they always wished to be, eternal, unchallenged, unbroken. Yet, for all their mastery, seeds of conflict remain. For though the Eldar resist decadence, they cannot resist their nature forever. Pride still burns within their souls, rivalry festers, ambition gnaws. They have avoided the abyss of indulgence, but they are not saints. They are still Eldar, still certain of their superiority, still contemptuous of the younger races. And where such pride endures, conflict waits, coiled and inevitable. This is the path not taken. A galaxy where the Eldar never fell. A galaxy where the stars still burn with their light. A galaxy where the question is not how they were broken, but whether they could ever be challenged. The eye of terror never opens. The night sky keeps its secrets. There is no permanent storm of unreality boiling in the heavens, no colossal bruise that never heals, no wound through which nightmares march like legions. The warp is still a sea, fickle and full of teeth, but it is a sea without a hole torn through its floor. Storms rise and storms fade, tides turn and currents shift, but it is weather, not apocalypse. Without the eye, travel between stars is treacherous, but not impossible. Warp storms remain, but they are tempests, not cataclysms. Navigators still risk their lives to chart safe passage, but their deaths do not map out the borders of an eternal storm. Humanity's voyages are difficult, but not constantly strangled. And the Eldar, masters of the Webway, move through their empire without ever touching the warp itself, stepping from gate to gate across polished bridges of Wraithbone, their dominion uninterrupted by the sea outside. Demons still exist. They always have, for as long as mortals have feared, hungered, and despaired. They still press against reality where it thins. They still whisper to the weak. They still hunger for sacrifice. But they are fewer, quieter, leaner. For the greatest feast they ever knew, the soul hunger of an entire species collapsing into ruin, never comes. Slaanesh is never born. The youngest god does not rise shrieking from the abyss. The warp is robbed of its most voracious predator, and the balance of power shifts. Khorne still rages upon his brass throne, fattened by the wars of mortals. Every battlefield, every drop of spilled blood, every scream of fury feeds him. And with the Imperium's crusade colliding with the Eldar's empire in this timeline, there is no shortage of slaughter. Khorne does not care who wins, only that the galaxy burns. Nurgle tends his garden of despair, his plague spreading slowly but steadily. His laughter echoes in the fevers of the forgotten, the coughs of the poor, the rot of unburied dead. In the shadows of both empires, his touch is felt, for there are always those who despair, always those who accept decay as comfort. And Chench, ever the schemer, flourishes in this altered cosmos.
Without Slaanesh to divide the appetites of mortals, ambition and pride flow more readily to him. The seer councils of the Eldar, the ambitions of imperial commanders, the dreams of mortals reaching too far, all are threads he tugs, weaving schemes upon schemes. His laughter fills the warp, for he knows the absence of Slaanesh makes his hand heavier upon the board. For the Eldar, this absence changes everything. Their souls are still bright, still delicious to predators, but they are not hunted by a single eternal hunger. Their spirit stones are no longer desperate prisons against an inevitable doom, but sacred artifacts, preserving souls for reverence rather than survival. Their rituals of discipline are not cages, they are choices, deliberate paths chosen to channel the fire within. They are not a broken race fighting to stave off extinction. They are an unbroken people who believe themselves eternal. There is no Drukhari. Commorragh still exists, yes, but it is not a city of broken exiles feeding upon torment. It is a jewel of the Webway, a nexus of politics, art, and cruelty. Its arenas are filled with gladiators, not because they must consume agony to live, but because cruelty is their sport. Its cabals plot endlessly, but their schemes are not desperate scrambles for survival. They are the intrigues of an empire too arrogant to imagine its end. The Darkkin are not separate. They are still Eldar, still lords of cruelty, but lords who remain within the Empire's embrace. The Harlequins dance their eternal masks, their plays mocking gods and mortals alike. But their laughter is not bitter, not desperate. It is triumphant, sharp and cutting. They are not the remnants of a broken people. They are the jesters of an eternal empire, secure enough to laugh at the galaxy. Even the gods of the Eldar endure. Kayla Mencha Kane, the bloody-handed, is not shattered into fragments, but remains whole. His avatars stride forth not as flickers of divinity bound within Craftworld shrines, but as full manifestations of his wrath, summoned in temples that blaze with sacrifice. Isha, the mother, still whispers comfort to her children. Asurion still stands as the high god, his authority unbroken. Segorak still laughs, but his laughter is sharp with triumph, not tinged by survival. The pantheon of the Eldar is not shattered. It is intact, worshipped, and feared. For humanity, the absence of the Eye of Terror is equally profound. Warp storms still rage, psychers still appear, but their rise is slower, less devastating. The age of strife is still chaos, but not apocalypse. Fleets are still lost, colonies still cut off, but the scale is muted. There is no eye consuming systems whole, no eternal scar. The Imperium that rises under the Emperor does not need to seal a gaping wound in the galaxy, but it does need to contend with something far greater, the enduring shadow of the Eldar Empire. The galaxy is calmer, quieter, but it is not safer. The eye may never have opened, but the ambitions of gods and mortals remain. The warp is leaner, but it is hungry. Chaos has not lost its war, it has only changed its shape. And in the quiet between storms, the Eldar grow more certain that their eternity is assured. The Eldar Empire did not collapse into ruin. It did not fracture into craftworlds born of desperation, or splinter into exiles scurrying through the shadows of the Webway. It did not lose its gods, its pride, or its place as the master of the galaxy. Instead, it endured, whole and unbroken. This is what eternity looks like when it is not interrupted by catastrophe. Across the galaxy, Eldar Dominion is not spoken of as history. It is the present, the unchanging reality. From the shining core systems to the outer spiral arms, the Empire stretches vast and unbroken. an endless chain of worlds bound together by the arteries of the Webway. Gates flicker with psychic light as fleets of wraithbone vessels slip silently between them, bypassing the storms of the warp entirely. While other races struggle against tides of unreality, the Eldar glide through secret highways untouched by chaos. Their dominion secured not by chance, but by mastery. Their cities are marvels of artistry and will. Wraithbone towers rise like living trees, humming softly with psychic resonance. Their architecture is not built, but grown, coaxed into form by bone singers who weave song and thought into material. The very walls of Eldar cities are alive, responding to their moods, resonating with their spirits. Gardens of crystal forests bloom under carefully shaped suns, their colors shifting in harmony with the emotional cycles of their people.
Seas shimmer with hues chosen for beauty, not chance, their waves whispering songs written into the bones of the world itself. Every Eldar world is a curated masterpiece. Nothing is left to accident. Climates are balanced, ecosystems are perfected. Mountains are carved into forms pleasing to the eye and spirit. To walk upon an Eldar world is to walk within a dream sculpted by will, where even the wind carries with it a note of intentional harmony. This is no empire of brute expansion. It is an empire of artisans, every planet a canvas, every star a lantern hung with purpose in the void. Yet beneath the beauty lies the steel of dominion. The Eldar are not caretakers, they are rulers, and their rule is absolute. Other races are not seen as equals. They are curiosities, pests, or tools. Orcs, the ever-multiplying vermin of the galaxy, are managed like wild animals. When their wargs rise too high, war hosts descend upon them. Aspect warriors cut down their mobs with precision, striking not merely to kill, but to cull. Humanity is tolerated at this stage of its development, primitive and scattered, more a curiosity than a threat. Some Eldar lords see them as a species to be shepherded, others as one to be ignored until it dares to rise too far. The Necrons slumber still in their tombs, watched by the vigilant seer councils. The Tyranids beyond the galactic rim have not yet come, though even the farthest sight of the Eldar seers catches whispers of their approach. The Empire does not simply endure. It perfects itself. The path system thrives, not born in desperation after near extinction, but as a conscious refinement of their eternal souls. Eldar passion is bound, not shackled, into mastery. The path of the warrior flourishes, each aspect temple a tradition of perfection. Striking scorpions hone their ambushes into art. Howling banshees turn terror into harmony. Dire avengers drill until every volley is a chorus of death. The path of the seer expands, their counsels weaving fate into patterns not as warnings, but as instruments. They do not peer into the future out of fear. They do so to shape it, to write it like poets inscribe verse. The path of the artisan fills the Empire with wonders, objects of such beauty that even gods pause to admire them. Exarchs do not rise as tragic figures forever bound to their aspects. They are revered masters, paragons of a path chosen for eternity. Their example is not seen as a cautionary tale, but as the highest achievement. To lose oneself in mastery is not a curse, it is a gift. Comarag thrives as well, though it is not a city of desperation and damnation. It is not a haven for exiles feeding on agony to stave off she who thirsts. For there is no Slaanesh, there is no hunger for souls. Comarag is instead the heart of intrigue, a jewel of cruelty within the Webway. Cabals vie for power, assassinations and raids common, but these are not born of necessity.
They are born of arrogance, of a culture so assured of its eternity that cruelty becomes its entertainment.
The arenas of Commorragh roar with blood and spectacle, gladiators battling for the pleasure of lords who know no fear of extinction. They are not Drukhari, they are Eldar still, whole, proud, and merciless. The Harlequins remain, dancing their eternal masks in flickering theatres across the Webway. They mock gods and mortals alike, their laughter sharp and triumphant. They are not survivors dancing at the edge of annihilation. They are jesters of an eternal people, secure enough to laugh at themselves, cruel enough to laugh at all others. And the gods, the Eldar pantheon remains intact, worshipped in temples that blaze with psychic fire. Kaela Mensha Kain, the bloody-handed, stands whole and unbroken. His avatars stride forth when called, their molten wrath burning across battlefields, their power undiminished by shattering. Isha continues to bless her children, her whispers heard in every healing song, every harvest untouched by famine. Azurian, the greatest, still reigns as the high god, the divine authority guiding all. And Sigorach dances still, his laughter ringing sharp, his riddles cruel, but triumphant, not tinged with bitterness. The pantheon is whole, the Eldar are whole. This is the eternal empire. Yet beneath the perfection, cracks whisper. Eternity is not stasis. Perfection is not peace. Rivalries fester in the seer councils. Temples compete for supremacy in subtle ways. The cabals of Commorragh indulge in excess, not because they must, but because they can. Ambition gnaws at eternity, for no soul, however disciplined, can be content forever. And the younger races grow. Humanity spreads across stars. Their crude ships stumble through the warp. Their psychers flare into existence. Their colonies scatter and multiply. They are not yet a threat, but they are a shadow of what may come. The orcs, though culled, rise again and again. The necrons, though suppressed, stir ever deeper. The tyrannids, though distant, creep closer. Eternity is not as secure as it seems. The Eldar believe themselves eternal. They believe no one can challenge them, but even in eternity, change waits, and pride blinds them to it. On the world of terror, the tides of history rise and fall as they always have. Empires are born, empires crumble, kings rule and are forgotten. Humanity, restless and stubborn, claws upward from caves to castles, from steel to stars. Yet, in this alternate galaxy, mankind does not rise in a void. It does not inherit ruins. It grows beneath a ceiling of starlight already claimed, a galaxy already mastered by another race. The Eldar Empire does not notice humanity at first. When the first fire is struck on the plains of Terra, the Eldar are sculpting suns. When the first great ships of wood sail upon oceans, the Eldar are curating whole planets into gardens of crystal and harmony. Humanity is an insect colony beneath their feet, noisy, insignificant, beneath notice. For millennia, this remains true. But the galaxy is vast, and even the smallest insect can become a swarm. As humanity spreads across its home system, builds engines of fusion, and takes its first faltering steps into space, the Eldar begin to notice. At first, they are amused, a primitive race burning chemical fuels to claw upward, celebrating every orbital launch as if it were divinity. To Eldar eyes, it is a child's game, like watching ants attempt to mimic fire. But humanity does not stop. Humanity never stops. It builds, it spreads, it multiplies. Its ships are crude, its engines clumsy, its psychers unstable. But it endures. And endurance to the Eldar is alien. They do not understand a race that thrives on imperfection, that rushes headlong into danger without mastery. They watch, and for the first time, they feel unease. The age of technology dawns. Humanity builds its first true warp drives. Navigators are born, mutated bloodlines capable of guiding ships through the storms of unreality. Great fleets set forth, colonies are seeded across 1,000 stars. Artificial intelligences rise, the men of iron, and for a time, mankind thrives. The galaxy, so long the unchallenged dominion of the Eldar, now feels a flicker of intrusion. The Eldar do not yet move against it. They see it as inevitable. Young races burn bright, then fade. Why waste effort on sparks when eternity belongs to them? But sparks can ignite fire. The Men of Iron rebellion strikes humanity like a hammer. Its machines rise against their makers, and mankind bleeds. Worlds are lost, fleets burn, but humanity survives.
And that survival is what troubles the Eldar most. In their calculations, a race so crude should have been snuffed out. Yet humanity endures. And in their endurance, the Eldar see something dangerous. The Empire watches all of this, silent and hidden, guiding bloodlines, whispering to leaders, shaping history from the shadows. He knows what humanity does not, that it rises beneath the shadow of an empire that believes itself eternal. His great crusade will not be an expansion into an empty galaxy. It will be defiance against the stars themselves. The age of strife erupts. Warp storms rage across the galaxy. Psychers rise uncontrolled. Human empires fall into madness and isolation. Yet, without the Eye of Terror, the age of strife is less absolute. It is not the end of everything. It is chaos, yes, but storms pass. Some colonies are cut off, but others endure. Terra itself suffers war and ruin, but humanity does not fall completely into silence. When the storms clear, there are still voices, still lights burning across the void. The Eldar watch. Some seers counsel extermination. Humanity, they argue, is a pest that will spread beyond control if allowed. Others laugh at the notion. Humanity is primitive, violent, self-destructive. Let them burn themselves out. Why waste an empire's wrath on insects gnawing at crumbs? A few, however, whisper prophecies. They speak of a race of iron will, of a leader born of terror, of a defiance that could one day rival even the Eldar. Most laugh. But the whispers remain. The Emperor steps forth at last, no longer hidden, no longer guiding in silence. He reveals himself as the master of mankind. He unites terror in blood and fire, crushing warlords, binding the fractured cradle of humanity under his banner. From Mars, he claims the Mechanicum, welding ancient knowledge into his cause. He forges the legions of space marines, and from the warp, his primarchs are scattered by the malice of chaos. Yet even in this altered galaxy, their fates unfold, each raised upon a different world, each to be found and claimed in time. The Great Crusade begins. But unlike the history we know, it does not stride into ruins left by the Eldar fall. It does not expand into an empty stage. It collides with eternity. Every campaign is harder. Every victory is bloodier. For the Eldar are not shadows. They are not remnants. They are rulers. When the first Imperial fleets push into the stars, they find worlds already under Eldar dominion. When they raise banners of conquest, they meet war hosts descending from the Webway.
Eldar fleets move like blades across the void, striking faster than human ships can follow. Aspect warriors carve through legionaries with precision. Farseers predict campaigns before they begin, confounding Imperial commanders at every turn. Horus, Warmaster, drives forward with fury. Guilliman builds fortresses across every conquest. Russ rages against Aspect warriors. Magnus duels with Eldar seers. Each Primarch finds himself not a conqueror of ruins, but a challenger to a living empire. And the Emperor watches. He knows the truth. His dream of humanity's dominion is not inevitable. It is defiance. For in this galaxy, mankind does not rise to inherit. It rises to resist. It rises not as the destined rulers of the stars, but as rebels in the house of eternity. The Eldar still see humanity as beneath them, but the first cracks of doubt form. This crude race does not burn itself out. It endures, it grows, and it fights. The Eternal Empire begins to notice that eternity may not be unchallenged after all.
The Great Crusade was never destined to be easy, but in this galaxy, it is not simply a campaign of conquest. It is a struggle against a rival empire that has never fallen, never fractured, never doubted its eternity. The empire rises not into opportunity, but into defiance. Every star claimed, every world liberated, is contested by masters who have ruled for millennia. The Emperor knew this from the moment he revealed himself. His vision for mankind was never simply unity, never simply survival. It was dominance. Humanity would not endure beneath the shadow of another. It would rise and claim the stars. Yet, to do so, he would need to break eternity itself. The first clashes of the Crusade against the Eldar are small, but telling. Imperial fleets arrive at human colonies long thought lost during the Age of Strife, only to find them already under Eldar stewardship. Where mankind sees reclamation, the Eldar see trespass. Diplomatic envoys are sent, words are exchanged, but pride and suspicion drown them. Soon enough, bolter fire and shuriken fire answer in place of speeches. To the legions, these battles are bewildering. They are used to overwhelming opposition with force and discipline. Against orcs, against fragmented human empires, against scattered Xenos, their might is unchallenged. But the Eldar are not scattered. They are not primitive. They are not blunt.
They fight like the echo of gods. Imperial commanders learn quickly that the Eldar warhost is unlike any foe they have faced. Their aspect warriors embody perfection. Striking scorpions appear from shadows where none should exist, tearing through squads of marines before vanishing again. Howling banshees crash into battle lines, their screams turning hardened veterans into prey frozen in fear. File dragons melt tanks with contemptuous ease. Warp spiders flicker across battlefields, weaving in and out of existence faster than bolters can turn. And above them all, the Farseers guide each movement, each strike, each retreat. Their prophecies unraveling Imperial strategy before it can take form. Legions bleed, campaigns stall. The pride of the Primarchs is tested in ways it has never been. Horus, the Warmaster, wages his wars with audacity, hurling his lunar wolves into the thickest of Eldar defenses. He seeks to overwhelm their elegance with sheer force, to shatter their precision beneath relentless assault. His brilliance wins him victories, some of them staggering, but even he finds frustration. For every battle won, the Eldar fade into the Webway, regroup, and strike again at his flanks. He cannot force them to stand, and his pride burns with every retreat. The Warmaster of the Imperium, reduced to chasing shadows,
his resentment begins to fester. Robot Gilliman takes another approach. Ever the pragmatist, he studies the Eldar as carefully as any foe. He sees their reliance on seer councils, on the foresight that guides their strategies.
To counter it, he builds logistics networks too vast and flexible to predict, supply lines layered with false trails and misdirection. Every world he claims is transformed into a fortress world, a bastion designed to resist Eldar raids. His conquests are slower than Horus's, but they endure. Where Horus blazes, Gilliman entrenches. His ultramarines learn to fight, not to crush, but to hold. Lemon Ross meets the Eldar in fury. His space wolves are a weapon of savagery, and against the cold elegance of aspect warriors, he throws his sons like wolves against dancers. His ferocity wins him renown, for even Eldar discipline cracks when faced with unrelenting rage. Yet even Russ learns humility. For every war host he crushes, another rises. For every victory he claims, the Eldar remind him with surgical strikes that their war is not one of annihilation, but of teaching. They do not seek to destroy the wolves. They seek to remind them of their place. And Russ, in his fury, understands the insult keenly. Magnus thrives. His psychic might is unmatched, and in the Eldar he finds his equals at last. Their seers are formidable, their warlocks disciplined, but Magnus is fire where they are water. He tears through wards, unravels prophecies, and bends the warp to his will. The Emperor sees in him the perfect weapon, the spear that will pierce Eldar foresight. But in Magnus's victories, the seeds of danger grow. Tzeentch whispers to him louder than ever, showing him visions of mastery, of power beyond even the Emperor. The Emperor sees in him the perfect weapon, the spear that will pierce Eldar foresight. But in Magnus's victories, the seeds of danger grow. Tzeentch whispers to him louder than ever, showing him visions of mastery, of power beyond even the Emperor. To fight the Eldar in their own domain is to dance upon the strings of chaos itself. The Eldar are not unified in their response. Their empire is vast, and though they are disciplined, they are not of one mind. Seer councils argue endlessly. Some demand humanity's extermination before it grows further. Others suggest containment, that the young race should be permitted to flourish only within boundaries set by Eldar hands. A few whisper of prophecy, visions of humans rising to rival even the Eldar, a danger to eternity itself. These whispers spread unease, though many dismiss them with arrogance. The Emperor knows this and exploits it. He sends envoys, not expecting peace, but probing for weakness. He tests the edges of their dominion, measures their pride, learns the gaps in their unity. He does not yet strike at their gods, but he plans for it. The war escalates. Worlds burn. Fleets vanish into the void. Campaigns stretch for decades. The Imperium bleeds, but it learns. Humanity cannot match Eldar elegance, but it can endure. It can grind. It can bleed and rise again. For every war host that triumphs, another legion marches. For every fleet shattered, another is built. And then comes Carnanor. On the ash plains of that world, the Emperor himself meets an avatar of Cain. Summoned in a temple of fire and sacrifice, the molten god strides forth, its body aflame, its sword dripping with burning wrath. To mortals, it is divinity made flesh. To the legions, it is terror incarnate. Bolters shatter, tanks melt, warriors die screaming as the Avatar cuts through their ranks. But the Emperor steps forward. His golden light blazes against the molten fire of the god. Reality itself bends as Father of Mankind clashes with God of War. Mountains tremble, skies burn. The warp howls with the echo of their strikes.
For hours they battle, neither yielding, until at last the Emperor's light sears through the Avatar's chest. With a scream like a dying sun, the war god collapses, its essence scattering into smoke and ash. The battlefield falls silent. The legions stare, trembling. The Eldar war host withdraws, shaken. For the first time in millennia, the Eldar pantheon has been touched. For the first time, a mortal rival has slain a god's avatar. The galaxy trembles. The Emperor's struggle is not simply against an empire. It is against eternity, against gods, against pride that has lasted since before mankind was born. This war will not end quickly. It will not end easily. It is a struggle not for territory, but for destiny itself. And in that struggle, one truth becomes clear. The galaxy is not vast enough for both the Imperium and the Eldar. The warp does not sleep. It never has. It is the sea beneath reality, boiling with thought and hunger, shaped by every mortal mind that has ever dreamed or despaired. Even without the wound of Slaanesh's birth, even without the eye of terror yawning wide, it remains restless, it remains alive, and within it the great gods still sit upon their thrones.
Khorne, the Lord of Rage, roars upon his brass seat, rivers of blood flowing beneath him, skulls piled high upon his dais. Every act of war, every cry of anger, every blade raised in fury feeds him. In this alternate galaxy, where the Imperium and the Eldar clash endlessly, he grows fat on slaughter. For Khorne does not care who kills or why. He cares only that the galaxy bleeds. And in this war of empires, the blood flows like oceans. His laughter shakes the warp, for the long war of man and Eldar is his eternal feast. Nurgle, the Lord of Decay, tends his garden of despair. Without Slaanesh to balance his domain, his influence spreads in subtler ways, filling the cracks left by war. On human colonies cut off by endless campaigns, plagues fester. In Eldar cities, where arrogance blinds rulers to the suffering of their servants, rot takes root. His cults whisper of peace in surrender, of comfort in suffering, of eternity in acceptance. The endless wars between Imperium and Eldar create countless refugees, countless broken, countless lost. And in every cough, in every fever, Nurgle's laughter grows. Tzeentch, the great Shemer, flourishes most of all. The absence of Slaanesh removes one predator from the board, leaving ambition, pride, and desire to flow more readily into his hands. The Eldar seer councils weave prophecy upon prophecy, every vision a thread for him to tug. The Imperium dreams of survival and dominance, every ambition another string in his web. Even the Emperor's plans, vast and calculated, ripple with currents Tzeentch delights in twisting. Without Slaanesh to divide the cravings of mortals, Tzeentch's influence expands unchecked. His laughter echoes across the immaterium as he plays both sides against one another, feeding on their defiance, their pride, and their endless dreams of victory. But the warp is quieter than in our timeline. Without Slaanesh's birth scream, there is no eye of terror, no permanent scar. Warp storms rage, but they pass. The sea is dangerous, but it has no hole in its floor. Travel is treacherous, but less catastrophic. Astropaths live longer, their minds less tormented. Navigators chart safer routes. The Imperium, though locked in war with the Eldar, suffers fewer crippling losses to the storms between stars. Its fleets may be shattered in battle, but fewer vanish into nothing. For the Eldar, the absence of Slaanesh is a salvation beyond measure. Their souls remain bright, vibrant, vulnerable to predators, yes, but there is no eternal hunger hunting them. They do not fear each death as a meal for a god. Their spirit stones are not lifelines against inevitable consumption. They are sacred tokens, repositories of memory and honor. Their paths remain disciplines, not cages. Their cruelty does not fracture into Drukhari desperation. Comarag thrives as a capital of arrogance, not a city of damned exiles. The Harlequins laugh with triumph, not bitterness. And the gods of the Eldar remain whole, unbroken, and worshipped. Yet chaos does not vanish. It cannot. It only shifts its shape. Without Slaanesh, there is no god of excess, no predator of sensation, no she who thirsts.
But the cravings of mortals, lust, indulgence, obsession, do not vanish. They still exist. They simply bleed into the other gods or into Tzeentch's schemes. A human warlord who once would have been seduced by ecstasy now finds himself surrendering to ambition. An Eldar lord who might have lost himself in indulgence now loses himself in prophecy. The warp adapts, as it always does. Cultists still gather in hidden chambers, painting symbols in blood, whispering prayers into the dark. Their rituals still tear holes into reality. Their sacrifices still birth horrors into the world. Demons still walk, still seduce, still slaughter. But their presence is rarer, their reach narrower. The galaxy is quieter, but not safe. The Emperor knows this. He has always known. In council with his sons, he speaks not only of the Eldar, but of the true enemy behind all things, the warp itself. He warns them that the gods of chaos are patient, that their hunger is eternal, that every act of war, every drop of blood spilled, every scheme woven feeds them. Some Primarchs listen. Guilliman calculates their influence with cold precision. Magnus listens with dangerous fascination. Russ spits at the notion, preferring his wars to abstractions. Horus nods, but hears only what his pride allows. The Eldar know it too. Their seers feel the tug of chaos in their visions, the weight of gods lurking behind mortal actions. Their warlocks weave wards against the whispers. Their temples sanctify their gods as shields against intrusion.
They are arrogant, yes, but not ignorant. They know that even without Slaanesh, the walk is never silent. And so, as Imperium and Eldar clash across centuries, the warp feeds. Khorne drowns in the blood of their wars. Nurgle fattens on their despair. Tzeentch delights in their ambitions. Without Slaanesh, the warp is weaker, perhaps, but it is also hungrier, more insidious, more patient. It waits, watching the two empires bleed one another, knowing that in the end, every act of defiance, every wound, every death belongs to it. The Emperor fights not only against the Eldar, not only against eternity. He fights against the immaterial itself. His crusade is not only for dominion, but for survival against a sea that grows darker with every war. He knows that even if mankind triumphs over the Eldar, even if eternity is broken, the warp will remain. And in this galaxy, where Slaanesh was never born, the question is not whether chaos will win. The question is only how long it will take. The galaxy is not a stage for only two players. Beyond the Imperium and the Eldar lie countless other forces, ancient and new, each with their own hungers, their own destinies. In the galaxy we know, many of these races rose to prominence because of the vacuum left by the fall of the Eldar. But in this alternate history, the Eldar never fell. Their empire remained intact, dominant, eternal. And so the balance of Xenos power is rewritten. The Orcs come first, they always do. The green tide is the galaxy's eternal plague of war, seeded long ago by the Old Ones, bred for conflict without end. In our history, the Orcs thrive in the cracks left by Eldar ruin and Imperial struggle, their wargs spreading unchecked across neglected stars. But here, their rise is constrained. The Eldar never turned inward into despair. Their war hosts have always culled Orc infestations like gardeners pruning weeds. Whenever a war boss begins to gather strength, whenever a tide begins to swell, Eldar fleets descend. Aspect warriors cut down mobs with surgical precision. Seer councils predict the rise of new warlords and dispatch killers before they can lead. Orc empires rise, yes, but they are broken before they can swell to apocalyptic size. They remain a constant, but a managed one. They are an itch scratched endlessly, never allowed to become infection. The Necrons are a deeper threat. In our timeline, their awakening is gradual, often unnoticed until it is too late. The galaxy, fractured by chaos and weakened by war, cannot mount a unified resistance, and so the Necron dynasties rise piece by piece. But here, the Eldar are ready. They remember the war in heaven. They remember the metal legions that once nearly unmade creation. They remember their old enemies, and they do not hesitate. When the first tomb worlds stir, when the first legions rise from their crypts, they do not emerge into a fractured galaxy. They emerge into the crosshairs of the Eternal Empire. Eldar fleets descend in fire. Wraith constructs march against legions of living metal. Farseers weave their prophecies to counter every Necron strategy. For the first time in 60 million years, the ancient war ignites again. But this time, the Eldar are not desperate. They are strong. Many Necron dynasties are shattered before they can awaken fully. Their lords are cut down in their tombs, their fleets cracked open in their docks. Some survive, of course. There are always survivors. The galaxy is vast, and the Necrons are patient. But their rise is slower, their reach shorter. They are denied the easy victories that once came from a galaxy too broken to resist them. The Tyranids are a different story. In our history, they arrive to find a galaxy already fractured, ripe for harvest. The Imperium is weakened by chaos, the Eldar are remnants, and the swarm feasts upon the weak. But in this reality, when they come, they find a galaxy defended by an empire that has not broken. The first hive fleets crawl into the stars, a shadow at the edge of the void. But the Eldar seers see them. They sense the ripple of hunger beyond the rim. They prepare. When the swarm enters, it does not find scattered prey. It finds fleets of wraithbone ships waiting, guided by prophecies that predict its every move. Eldar war hosts descend upon the Tyranids with fire and fury. The swarm adapts, yes, it always adapts, but its feast is harder, its path bloodier. The Tyranids do not falter, their hunger is endless, but they do not devour as easily. Every system they consume is paid for in oceans of ichor. Every planet harvested is contested in wars that burn into legend. The swarm endures, but it is resisted more fiercely than ever before. Whether even the Eldar can hold them back forever is uncertain, but one truth is clear. The galaxy does not collapse before them. And then there are the Tau. In our history, they are a late spark, rising in the galactic east while larger powers are too distracted to notice. Their empire is small but idealistic, their technology advancing swiftly, their dream of the greater good blossoming because no one bothers to snuff it out. But in this timeline, they never reach that point. The Eldar notice them long before they rise. Their seers watch the blue-skinned primitives squabble in their valleys, their shamans gazing at the stars. They see the paths of probability, paths where the Tau become a nuisance, paths where they become a rival. And the Eldar, arrogant and cautious, act. Before the Tau can spread their wings, their spark is extinguished. Raids burn their early cities. War hosts descend upon their first fledgling empires. Their rise is strangled in infancy. The greater good is never spoken. The Tau never matter. And so the galaxy reshapes itself. The orcs are trimmed, never allowed to swell. The Necrons are checked, their resurrection delayed. The Tyranids are resisted, their hunger contested. The Tau are erased before they can bloom. Only the Imperium dares to resist. Only humanity's stubborn will refuses to be contained. But this dominance comes at a cost. The Eldar believe their eternity is secured, but their very mastery blinds them. They grow complacent, assuming that every threat can be managed, every rival curtailed. They do not see the slow, stubborn rise of mankind for what it is. They do not feel the shadow of chaos thickening behind their victories. They believe they are eternal, yet eternity is never certain. The galaxy is not a garden to be trimmed. It is a forest, vast and wild, and no matter how carefully one prunes, something always grows beyond control. The Eldar's arrogance blinds them to this truth, and in that blindness, the seeds of their greatest war are sown. The galaxy cannot serve two masters. For millennia, the Eldar have believed themselves eternal, unchallenged, the rightful rulers of all creation. Their fleets glide through the Webway, their seers shape futures, their gods stride among them. Yet now humanity has risen, and the Emperor will not accept a place in another's shadow. His dream is not survival. His dream is dominion. And so the clash becomes inevitable. At first, the war is fought at the borders, sparks of violence igniting into campaigns. Imperial fleets push outward, seeking to reclaim humanity's lost colonies, only to find them already claimed by Eldar hands. War hosts descend upon them, their aspect warriors cutting through marines with surgical precision. Eldar ships dance through void fire, their lances carving Imperial frigates apart. Imperial commanders, unprepared, bleed. But the Imperium does not retreat. It never has. The Emperor's vision cannot allow hesitation. More fleets are built, more soldiers sent, more legions unleashed. For every world lost, another is contested. For every defeat, another war is declared. Humanity cannot match the Eldar in elegance, but it can endure. It can bleed without breaking. The Primarchs embody this truth. Horus, the War Master, wages his wars with fury. He throws his lunar wolves into the heart of Eldar the Minion, daring them to meet him head-on. His brilliance lies not in patience, but in audacity. He wins victories the Eldar do not expect, crushing war hosts before their seers can redirect them.
Yet his frustration grows. For every triumph, the Eldar fade into the Webway, regroup and strike elsewhere. He cannot force them to submit, and his pride begins to burn. Robute Gilliman takes another path. His ultramarines move with discipline unmatched, turning every conquered world into a bastion. His logistics networks are layered and intricate, designed to frustrate Eldar foresight. Yet his frustration grows. For every triumph, the Eldar fade into the Webway, regroup and strike elsewhere. He cannot force them to submit, and his pride begins to burn. Robute Gilliman takes another path. His ultramarines move with discipline unmatched, turning every conquered world into a bastion. His logistics networks are layered and intricate, designed to frustrate Eldar foresight.
Where Horus blazes, Gilliman builds. His conquests are slower, but they endure. He knows the war will not be won in a year or a decade. It will be won in centuries, through endurance, through permanence. Leman Russ hunts with fury, his wolves clashing with aspect warriors in savage duels. His ferocity wins him renown, breaking formations with sheer violence, turning elegant Eldar dances into chaos. Yet he too learns humility. For every war host he crushes, another strikes at his flanks. For every planet he secures, another burns. He is a predator chasing a shadow, and the insult enrages him. Magnus thrives in this war more than any other. His psychic power meets the Farseers on their own ground. Their webs of prophecy clash with his visions, their wards with his fire. Whole star systems tremble under their duels. The Emperor sees in Magnus the perfect counter to Eldar arrogance, the weapon that could unmake their foresight. But the warp whispers louder in Magnus's ear than ever before. To match the Eldar is to dance dangerously close to the strings of chaos. The Eldar, for their part, respond with equal ferocity. Their aspect temples perfect themselves further, each war host an instrument of harmony and death. Their Farseers weave counter-prophecies, their warlocks binding futures into knots to confound the Imperium. The avatars of Cain stride forth, molten gods summoned to burn the stars in divine wrath. Even Comarag joins the war, not as broken exiles, but as cruel raiders, striking Imperial supply lines, abducting captives for sport and power.
The battles are endless. Whole sectors burn, reclaimed one year, lost the next. The Webway hums with blood. The warp groans under the weight of psychic fire, and the galaxy itself trembles. The Emperor himself walks these wars. On Erendor, he shields his legions from a psychic storm unleashed by an entire Seer Council, his golden will burning through their visions. On Duraleth, he duels another avatar of Cain, their battles scarring the planet into glass. Where he stands, the Imperium holds. Where he moves, the Eldar feel fear. And yet they do not break. The Eldar are eternal, their pride as unyielding as the Emperor's will. They bleed, but they endure. Their seers remind them that destiny is theirs. Their gods remain whole. Their arrogance insists that no mortal empire can rival them. So the war drags on, not for years, not for decades, but for centuries. It becomes not a campaign, but a way of existence. The Imperium defines itself against the Eldar. Its culture hardens around defiance. Its people worship the Emperor, not simply as father, but as God. For only he can stand against the pantheon of the Eldar. The dream of unity becomes a necessity of survival. The Eldar are transformed as well. Their arrogance is scarred, their eternity cracked. They begin to see humanity not as insects, not as nuisances, but as rivals.
Some whisper that mankind may surpass them. Others laugh, dismissing the thought. But doubt creeps into their councils, their temples, their songs. Chaos feasts.
Every war, every betrayal, every drop of blood spilled feeds the gods. Khorne bellows with laughter as the galaxy drowns in slaughter. Nurgle spreads in the wake of burning worlds. Tzeentch dances as prophecy and ambition twist into endless knots. The longer the war drags, the more the warp hungers. The galaxy is consumed in fire. Not because one empire falls, but because two refuse to yield. The war of two destinies stretches across generations, each side certain it is the rightful master of creation. And in their pride, neither sees that their struggle is bleeding the galaxy dry. The galaxy is a graveyard of suns. Centuries of war have carved scars across the stars, wounds that no empire can heal. Where once the Eldar Empire glowed with radiant eternity, it now bears marks of attrition. Worlds once sculpted into perfection are blackened, their wraithbone towers toppled by orbital fire. Webway gates hum with cracks, their perfection strained by constant use. The Eldar are not broken, they endure, but their eternity is stained with scars. The Imperium endures as well, as it always has. Its legions bleed across battlefield after battlefield. Its fleets burn in void fire. Its worlds are consumed by wrath and ruin. But for every defeat, humanity rises again. For every fleet lost, another is forged. For every legion shattered, others march. Humanity cannot match Eldar grace, but it has what the Eldar cannot fathom: the will to endure endless imperfection. For the Imperium, survival is victory. The war between the two empires becomes a constant rhythm. Worlds burn, are rebuilt, and burn again. Generations of men and Eldar are raised knowing only this: the war does not end. It cannot end. Neither side can accept submission. Neither side can share the stars. The galaxy is not vast enough for both. In this crucible, both civilizations are transformed. The Imperium, hardened by the constant shadow of Eldar power, grows crueler, harsher, more absolute. Its worship of the Emperor becomes faith unbreakable, for only his light stands against Eldar gods. Humanity's defiance calcifies into religion. Every victory is sanctified, every defeat endured as a test of faith. The Emperor, once father of mankind, becomes more than ever the God Emperor, his divinity unquestionable in the eyes of his people. The Eldar, too, are changed. Their arrogance, long unchallenged, is cracked. They still believe themselves eternal, still worship their pantheon, still move with elegance unmatched, but they now acknowledge humanity as rival. They whisper in their seer councils of the crude race that bleeds and bleeds, yet will not die. Some call for extermination at any cost. Others whisper that perhaps humanity has a place in the galaxy, though as subordinates, never equals. A few, heretical even among Eldar, suggest that in mankind's defiance there is something worthy of respect. But the Empire itself cannot bend. Pride forbids it. Eternity forbids it. And so the war grinds on. Chaos feasts. Khorne drowns in oceans of blood, each battle an offering to his throne of skulls. The endless war is his greatest dream made manifest, a galaxy that knows only slaughter. Nurgle fattens on the despair of worlds burned again and again, on plagues bred in trenches and ruins, on mortals who surrender to him for the promise of comfort amidst endless conflict. Chench laughs loudest of all. Every prophecy tangled, every plan frustrated, every ambition twisted into ruin feeds him. He delights in watching two mighty empires bleed themselves dry, knowing that in their pride they serve his schemes. Without Slaanesh, the warp is quieter, yes, but it is not weaker. It is hungrier. And the longer the war of two destinies drags on, the more chaos drinks. The orcs roar in the cracks. For though the Eldar cull them, though the Imperium burns them, the green tide always returns. Every battlefield, every war zone, every blood-soaked system is fertile soil for a new Warg. Their laughter echoes across the stars, for to them this endless war is paradise. The Necrons stir in their tombs. Some dynasties rise, striking at both empires when they are weakest. The Eldar resist them, remembering ancient hatred, but their attention is divided. Humanity too resists, but with weapons designed for other wars. The Necrons endure, patient as stone, waiting for the moment when both rivals are too exhausted to resist. The Tyranids creep closer. Their high fleets arrive to find a galaxy not weak but burning. Yet, even in fire, there is feast. They consume worlds scarred by centuries of battle, their hunger endless, their adaptation relentless. The Eldar resist them, humanity resists them, but the swarm does not stop. It cannot stop. It is hunger incarnate. The galaxy trembles beneath the weight of all these hungers, all these destinies colliding. Yet still, the war of Imperium and Eldar rages on. Perhaps, in the end, humanity triumphs. Perhaps its numbers overwhelm, its faith hardens, its emperor ascends beyond mortality itself, crushing the pantheon of the Eldar with golden light. Perhaps mankind inherits the stars, not because it is graceful, but because it is relentless. But if it triumphs upon a pyre of worlds, upon a galaxy so scarred it can never recover. Or perhaps the Eldar endure. Perhaps their seers weave victory from prophecy, their gods shield them, their discipline outlasts humanity's fury. Perhaps they remain eternal, still lords of the stars, still unbroken. But if they endure, it is as a scarred people, their eternity transformed into vigilance, their arrogance tempered by wounds that will never heal. Or perhaps neither triumphs. Perhaps both bleed forever, locked in endless defiance, until chaos itself drowns the galaxy in ruin. Perhaps the orcs rise in the cracks. Perhaps the Necrons awaken fully. Perhaps the Tyranids consume all. Perhaps the galaxy ends, not with a victor's throne, but with silence. This is the long night. A galaxy where the Eldar never fell, where their empire endured, where humanity rose to defy them, and where both bled the stars into ruin. There is no peace. There is no victor. There is only war, eternal and endless, written into the bones of creation itself. And as the last suns flicker in the void, as the last worlds burn, as gods and mortals alike laugh and scream, one truth remains. The galaxy was never meant for peace. It was always meant for war.